coming.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi,
Are
Laura.
we ready to go?
We're ready.
Hi there. I'm so glad you're all here to celebrate the release of Brenda's novel, If the Light Escapes. Would everybody please turn off their cameras to keep the connection as fast as possible? After the presentation, you can turn them back on and Brenda will certainly want to chat with you. But we'll tell you when that's time, so thanks. I'm Laura Creedle. I'm author of The Love Letters of Abelard and Lily, but I'm also a friend and writing partner of Brenda's. Unlike a lot of Brenda's writing friends, I knew her long before we were both published. I first met Brenda when she was the general manager of the ICC, or the Intercooperative Council, near the campus of the University of Texas. I was fascinated with communal living and I loved the ICC from the moment I stepped foot in there, and I lived at 3 different houses. So I got to know Brenda very well at that time. And Brenda was a force. She was always passionate about her work and her ideas about the environment and living cooperatively, but she could be really blunt. So when our mutual friend, George Leake, suggested that the 3 of us start a writers group, I was a tiny bit intimidated. I'm shy. I've always been shy, and I've never been part of an in-person writing group before. In fact, I'd avoided it. But we were friends, and I thought, why not? I agreed to meet. And what followed were years of just delightful, delightful writers' meetings. We made delicious meals. Doug made his amazing margaritas, just his own special recipe. Never been able to figure it out. And we got a little bit of work done, maybe just a little bit. Somewhere along the way, we got more serious. There were fewer dinners, and I'm sorry to say, fewer delicious, delicious margaritas. George moved to California and left the group. Brenda met Aden during a pitch contest, and he joined the group. And we began the arduous and not at all fascinating job of revising and rewriting and revising and rewriting and querying and querying and querying and finally getting published. And through all the time that I've been around to witness this process, I've seen my way through 3 of Brenda's novels. And what's always fascinating me about her work is the depth of her knowledge and her way of looking at the world. I'm kind of a movie buff, and like many first world citizens who know, most of what I know about environmental collapse comes from movies. And it makes environmental collapse look really cool. Brenda's fiction introduced me to what would be truly important for survival in an apocalyptic future. Multi-generational family wisdom, community, water. Water storage, water purification, water sharing, cooking oil, tampons, seed corn, birth control, antibiotic ocean, and a whole list of other things that I had never, ever given much thought to. In one of her earlier drafts of her previous novel, If Darkness Takes Us, Brenda absolutely flummoxed me by devoting an entire chapter to an exhaustive list of all the things you would actually have to have on hand in your house if society ground to a collapse. I have scissors. You probably have scissors. I don't know how to sharpen scissors. I don't know what I'd do if I lost my scissors. I lose things all the time. Or if I broke them, scissors break. And what if you couldn't get others? What if your clothes were out and you had fabric on hand, but you didn't have scissors, and maybe you didn't even have a needle and thread, and maybe not enough thread? And what about shoes? What happens when your shoes give out? Do you make yourself new shoes? I don't know. I've never thought about any of that before. Brenda's work made me think about all of that. And while this section and this chapter didn't ultimately make it into the final draft, this sensibility informs all of her work. Her world is real, and it might be our world someday, which is a really sobering thought. Her work is not all doom and gloom, though. There's a deep survivor spirit and love and community. And in her new book, If the Light Escapes, which hopefully you're all about to read, there's a new love as well. And as always, an emphasis on community. I hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Laura.
So my name's Aden Polydoros. I'm the author of the upcoming book, The City Beautiful, out in October. And as Laura mentioned, I've been Brenda's critique partner for a number of years, since freshman year of undergraduate, so about 6 years. And it's been such a pleasure reading her work and just seeing how her stories have grown over the years and being able to follow them. And I didn't know Brenda before that, but over the course of these years, I've really become close to her and Laura, and we've formed such a wonderful writing group. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brenda. This wasn't her first novel. It's the sequel to her previous novel, If Darkness Takes Us, which won the 2018 Southern Fried Carmen Novel Contest and was published by SFK Press in October of 2019. The If Darkness Takes Us followed the point of view of Bea, a grandma trying to survive with her 4 grandkids after a devastating solar electromagnetic pulse takes out the entire US grid. And along with it, all vehicles, there's no telephones, no electricity, no doctors, no running water. And this story, If the Light Escapes, is a continuation of that tale, told from the point of view of Bea's 18-year-old grandson, Kino. What makes this story truly unique is that it's modeled after a slightly altered version of Brenda's own neighborhood. It takes place in Austin, Texas, where she's lived for 39 years. Prior to that, she was a member of The Farm, which was a vegan hippie commune based in Tennessee, where she studied spiritual phenomena and her sons were delivered by midwives. And her experiences at The Farm in part helped influence the setting of this book, the survival techniques and the experiences that the characters go through and rely on, the way that they learn how to survive in this drastically changed world. Currently, Brenda lives with her husband in a solar-powered home in South Austin. And yeah.
Thank you, Aden. So I think it's my turn to talk. First, I want to thank Laura and Aden, and I want to thank everyone here for coming tonight, and thank you for reading my books and cheering me on all the time. Helps me so much when you cheer me on. And thanks for all the lovely book reviews too, and for just being so great all the way around. There are many more people to thank, and I promise to get to them later on. But first, there's something I need to know. Am I a conjurer of doom? I mean, this can't all be coincidence, can it? Real world events have gotten downright spooky since the debut of the first book in this series, If Darkness Takes Us. And while I was writing and editing this standalone sequel, If the Light Escapes, they're supposed to be apocalyptic tales of science fiction, but I'm starting to wonder. In these novels that are set in the current day, a solar pulse fries the US grid, and a shift in Earth's magnetic poles allows the pulse to also take out telephones and automobiles with internal computers. Society has collapsed. No government, no running water, no internet, no news. The characters are isolated and left to fend for themselves in their small Austin, Texas neighborhood. If Darkness was published in October 2019, a few months later, we were plunged into a global pandemic. Those of us who are high risk have been secluded at home, if we're fortunate enough to have one. We've witnessed it all on TV, along with wildfires, hurricanes, floods, racial unrest, and a bloody insurrection. During all this, I was writing or editing If the Light I wrote with the news on in the background to set the tone. I sent the polished draft to the publisher in late 2020. Then in February 21, as I was completing a revision, we had the Texas snowpocalypse, where the grid had to be shut down statewide to prevent critical failure that would have taken years to repair. In Austin, we had no power or heat for days during single-digit temperatures, or most of us had no power, except for Laura, who lives close to a fire station. Thank God she did, and that she generously helped us out. Then we had no running water for more days, again, except for Laura. And when the water returned to our faucets, we had to boil it. Laura had to boil hers too. We found ourselves using some of the same skills to survive that the characters in my books did. When my son JD set out for the park to look for firewood, it was deja vu all over again. JD is in his early 40s, but he was so excited when he came home saying, "Mom, I found a big tree limb." And I've been left to wonder, am I conjuring this hellscape by writing about it? It was ridiculous. I'm not nearly that powerful after all, but I couldn't escape the feeling. I mean, even little things got spooky. And if the light, the inverter on the family solar panels gets broken, days later, after I sent off my book, my own solar inverter broke. Come on already. If camel-clad men with AK-47s appear in my neighborhood, I'm running for the hills. Oh, wait, this is Texas, where they just made it legal for people to carry unlicensed weapons everywhere, anytime. These guys could show up any minute. Eek. I've come to the conclusion that I'm not a conjurer of gloom and doom, but I might have a knack for seeing it coming. I knew we were ripe for trouble. I just didn't know what exact form it would take. I'm looking forward to the day when I see rainbows and unicorns on the horizon. But until then, I might have to start stockpiling like my If Darkness protagonist, Grandma B. Canned goods, toilet paper. We all know the drill now, don't we? So now, if it's okay with the rest of you, I'd like to do a short reading for you. I'm going to take a sip of water first, if that's okay. These are the opening pages of If the Light Escapes, featuring 18-year-old Keno Sims. Chapter 1. Bright green lights stream and pulse across the northern sky all night now, growing from thin and wispy to bold and fat, expanding, contracting, sending out bands of yellow streamers like they're partying on ecstasy at some cosmic rave. The lights are pretty and they're hypnotic and they creep me out to the core. Northern lights every night for 2 solid weeks in Texas, halfway to the equator from where they belong. They're supposed to be a phenomenon tied to the magnetic poles. It's a scientific fact. Nothing is right about this. The only explanation I can think of is that the North and South poles are shifting. I don't know what that means for the planet and the future of its creatures. We don't have TVs or talking head scientists to tell us if any of them would even know. The universe just won't stop effing with us. Today, I'm hoeing corn in our front yard, sweat stinging my eyes. It's blistering hot out here, early December in what used to be high-tech Austin, until the effing sun zapped us with an electromagnetic pulse and took our power, our cars, the damned running water. It stopped pretty much everything modern, that is. It's been 14 months, and all the front yards in our subdivision are mini cornfields now. We grow beans and veggies in the backyards. It's a desperate attempt to keep us alive when our food stockpiles run out. Don't know if it will work, but I'm doing my damnedest to make sure it does. Nana thinks God smacked us with a solar pulse to make us stop wrecking the planet. But I can't believe in a God who would be so cruel. This shit is killing people, and it's so wrong I can't see straight. I don't know how my heart is still beating after I watched my sister Tasha bleed to death last winter. No ambulances or doctors to save her. I may never get over it. And now my whole family is a god-awful mess. The only comfort I get comes from Alma. She was Tasha's best friend. We shared our pain over our parents being missing and over losing Tasha, and we fell in love. Now we're married. Some people say we're too young to be married, but we need each other too much to listen to them. Alma saved my life just as much as Nana and her secret house did. Within a few hours, I've hoed our front yard and the one next door, where the old lady nurses live. I slug some water and take my hoe to the backyard garden. I've got tons more shit to do by nightfall. Not that long ago, I was a snot-nosed nerd, spending all my time on computers and building robots, studying science and outer space, and being shy. I never thought I'd become an 18-year-old farmer in an EMP apocalypse, but here I am. Now I'm going to skip over the next two scenes where we meet Kino's closest family briefly, and their dinner is interrupted by a warning whistle that turns out to be because a starving man is stealing water and a rabbit for his hungry kids. I love that scene, but it's simply too long to read tonight. So I'll take you to later that night when Kino is having a dream. Chapter 2. I'm pedaling my bicycle like a demon, taking Tasha home from the only clinic we found to get her checked out. Hurry, Kino, go faster, Tasha's yelling into my ear from the bike cart behind me. Chaz is going to catch us. I'm trying, hold on. I hunker down and pump harder, huffing for breath, my leg muscles burning. I turn a corner and Tasha hollers, "Woohoo, we're getting away." She's laughing into my ear, squeezing my shoulder. Best brother ever. I peek back to see her pink cheeks, her big grin, the pure glee in her eyes. My pretty sister with her long dark hair. I'm protecting her from the asshole who made her pregnant and won't leave her alone. I'm proud of myself as I lock eyes with her and give her the biggest smile I've got. I turn my eyes back to the road and keep pumping, racing the bike faster than I thought it could go, with the bike cart attached and my sister inside. I'm glad they can't give me an abortion, Tasha says. I love babies. I reach back and squeeze her hand. Then suddenly, the corner into our neighborhood is in front of us. I brake and turn the handlebars and I lose control. The bike is tumbling and crashing with the cart, and Tasha is flying through the air, hitting the concrete on her stomach. I scrape myself off the pavement and Tasha is bleeding. I scoop her into my arms and run, both of us covered in her blood. I cry out and shoot up in bed, shaking and dripping with sweat. Alma pulls me to her and I latch on. She's used to me doing this. She strokes me saying, "Shh, baby, shh." She doesn't tell me it's all right because she knows that it's not. Thanks for listening. That's the end of my reading. I think now I'm going to get interviewed. Uh-oh.
I will start with the question, and then Aden, if you have one, you can jump in.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really stayed for me for both novels is, and this is sort of a weird tangent, but it's the cooking. I love how your characters cook and how they make do with so little, and it feels so realistic to me. And I love to hear how you write those scenes and what experiences you had that played into those scenes.
Oh, thanks. Well, living on a farm, we had to cook for anywhere from households of 6 or 8 to households of 45 people. And, you know, I got good at rolling tortillas. I could roll like 150 in a couple of hours. We had to bake our own bread. Sometimes the soy dairy would be running enough that we could pick up soy milk from them, but we also made our own, and we made our own tofu too. And we cooked lots of beans, soybeans in pressure cookers and other beans because we were vegans. And I gave my characters a mostly vegan diet, not because they want to be vegetarian, but because it's the best way to survive over the long haul.
Also, meat is hard to find.
Meat's hard to find, and you can grow a vegetarian diet. You don't have to even have, I mean, a vegan diet. You don't even have to have animals and you can keep everybody healthy that way. So I got, you know, I also have a big family, and I used to do a lot of cooking for the family. I used to even do vegetarian catering, but Doug is a big cook in the family nowadays. My husband is that way. I mean,
Yeah, just him behind your board. Hey, Doug.
Thanks.
Aden, you have a question, or should I shoot out another?
Yeah, I do. So I was wondering, was any part of the story difficult to write because it was so emotional or so hard hitting?
I don't know. Maybe something's wrong with me, but it's the emotional parts that I find easiest to write. The harder ones are, you know, the transitions and the little things and the facial expressions, and when people have everyday conversations and that kind of thing. But I mean, yeah, they made me very emotional, and there was, you know, some of the violent scenes in this book. I was really, really reluctant to go there. I almost didn't, but I thought for the sake of the genre and the story, I pretty much had to. It kind of didn't make sense that they wouldn't run into violent threats after all that time with the collapsed society. And then, you know, sometimes my scenes make me cry. And I figure if they make me cry after I've read them 20 times in a row, then I've written them right, or well, at least decently.
I definitely agree. I think that one of the things that makes your writing so unique is the way that you subvert these tropes we expect from apocalyptic novel, and that you don't fall back on these well-used, you know, plot points, and your characters actually creatively solve their issues rather than resorting to brute violence right off the bat.
Thank you. Well, I wanted, that's something I set out to do, write a different kind of apocalypse, because I've always been fascinated with the stories, and I was getting bored with the ones that are available to watch. I mean, there's some few really great ones, and then there's a lot of that are kind of, you know, same old, same old. And I just wanted to write something different, and I also wanted to write something that had the hope in it of people cooperating, because I don't think we're going to do so well in an apocalypse if we don't cooperate.
I definitely agree. Laura, do you have another question?
Sure. Okay, so you wrote the first novel from Bee's perspective, and you wrote about Kino in that novel, and then you switched to writing from Kino from his own perspective, which, yeah, that's just, how did you get from Bee's headspace into Kino's headspace, and what was the difficulty changing your POV and writing about a character you already had an external perspective from?
Well, I I raised all these sons, and then I also worked with college students Kino's age for 15 years, and I don't know, I something inside me knew how to write him. I didn't. I just sat down without much of a plan, except a few things I wanted to happen in the story. And he just came spewing out of me. I mean, I was actually at the beginning, I thought, I don't know, he's so young. I don't know if he can carry a whole adult novel, but he did. I mean, the hard part with Kino was, taming it, cutting out all the extra sideline things you would say or do to get down to the essence of a novel-sized story. But I don't know. I think I just, all my time spent with boys, lots and lots of boys, it just rubbed off on me. I don't know for sure. Who knows for sure? But it's, anybody else, guys?
I do have another question.
Okay.
I'd love to know more about how your perspective of your characters changed as you transitioned from B's book into the sequel.
Meaning how I look at them differently? Or?
How you viewed them, yeah. And if Kino's own opinions of these different characters influenced the way in which you viewed them as well.
Wow, that's a deep question. I'm not sure if they influenced. They must have. Surely they did. I mean, because I'm in his head, or his imaginary head that's in my head, and I'm thinking like he does. So yeah, I did notice that some people fell more to the background. Which would make sense because different people concentrate on different relationships, and even B was much less of a factor in the second novel because he's a kid and he tries to communicate with her and he's sweet to her, but he probably can't communicate. She could probably communicate with him better than he thinks she can. So I'm sure that changed the perspective on T. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah.
Thanks. So are we?
You want to open it up to questions and tell everybody to turn their cameras on if they're feeling it?
If that's the way we're going to do it. Liz, can you chime in here? Well, Liz is graciously running this event and behind the scenes. Hi, Liz.
There we go. I'm unmuted.
So how we're going to do the questions? You want to explain that to everybody?
It looks like we've got a smaller group. So if you guys want to do a little bit of a mix of things, it looks like we already have some people typing questions in the chat. If you guys are more comfortable doing it that way, if you guys don't know where the chat function is, it's down at the bottom of your screen. If you have the desktop app downloaded, it should be in a toolbar. It looks like a speech bubble. It says chat underneath it. It should open a panel up at the right side of your screen. You can type any questions you have in there. I'm going to make sure that those get read to Brenda. And if we get through those and there's any dead space and anybody wants to chime in and ask a question, you're more than welcome to. We've got some congratulations coming through this chat box over here. We had one from Olivia earlier, and we've got one now from Brenwyn. But Haley has a question for you. It says, I was curious if your writing process changed at all from book 1 to book 2.
Yes, it did. Book 1 took me, well, I wrote about 50,000 words in NaNoWriMo. I just made the cut to get the little award. And then I had to set it aside for quite a while because of a whole bunch of things happened in my life. And so I went back to the next NaNoWriMo and wrote another 20,000 words. And then it took me a couple more years to revise it, and because I had to fit it in around a whole bunch of other things in my life. and to finish it. So I didn't really finish it until it was getting close to 2 years before it was finished, and then all the revisions took quite a while. And then with Keno's book, I tend to call him B's book and Keno's book. With It's a Light, I wrote 120,000 words in 27 days in NaNoWriMo. And which just blew my mind. Nothing like that ever happened to me before. It just what I said about him came spewing out of me, this young man who lives inside me, apparently. And then I spent another year and a half taming him and down into a 100,000 word story. Then when I sent it to the publisher, they wanted a 80,000 word story and a rewrite. So I think I did more rewriting with Keno, but the initial story came much faster. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Let's see. We've got a question. Did you find writing about post-apocalyptic events affected your mood? Did you find yourself feeling more negative about the current events?
Well, that's hard to say because I'm an old activist. Okay, so I've been an activist since I was in 16, which is a very long time ago. And I have some perspective in that things happen and then they get fixed and then more things happen. And so I don't get super like it's the end of the world every time something happens. But this recent set of stuff was like more extreme than I remember seeing in my lifetime. And so I think I normally would have been fairly upset about it anyway, whether I had been writing an apocalypse or not. And I actually think writing the apocalypse helped me channel some of my anger and frustration into potential way to deal with it if it got worse. So I think it gave me hope more than anything. Is there another question?
We have a question from Paul. It says he's curious about how your experiences at the farm influenced your life. I'm assuming there means the farm.
Yeah. Well, I think it made me a hopeful person. I think it made me, I learned a zillion different skills there. I learned how to cooperate with a whole bunch of people. I made new friends that lasted for a lifetime. My kids made friends they've known since they're babies, they're still friends with. And they're in their 40s now. And I think it gave me a different outlook on things. So I was able to go from there straight into working for student co-ops. Well, first I worked for nonprofits, and then I worked for student co-ops, and it just was like a natural slide into that because I knew a lot about cooperating. I did learn more about cooperating in co-ops than I did in nonprofits or on the farm in terms of democratic decision making. Like, I think everybody could take lessons from student co-ops about how to run organizations democratically, because they've been studying rules that are set up in the 1840s and tweaked ever since. So, I got my 2 kids there and had a great birthing experience with women delivering my babies. And I don't know, I think some people tell me that farm people are different, that you can tell a farm person by the way they behave. And being a farm person, it's hard for me to have a perspective on that, but I think we are a little different.
You think?
I'm sorry. Is there another?
We have 2 more questions. The first one is, did you have a particular theme in mind when you wrote Kino's story, or did it appear as you wrote?
Pretty much appeared as I wrote, I think. I'm kind of, for people who aren't writers, there's plotters and pantsers write by the seat of their pants, and with it instead of with outlines. And I've been kind of one of those mostly. So I usually, as I write the story, the themes kind of bubble up, and then, you know, I'm a big reviser. I revise literally every scene 100 times, if not more. And I try to pull more of it out as I go. And then I had great editors to help me with that, like Haley, who's here tonight. And so that, I think, so I think from now on, I'm going to try to be more of a plantser, which is half plotter and half pantser, where I have a better plan to begin with to see if I can save myself a little revising time.
Haley wanted to know if the next book is going to come from a third POV, or if you're going to return to Kino or Bia.
Well, that's the big thing I'm trying to figure out. But I actually, what I think is, I'm going to have a few POVs. How many, I'm not sure. I've never done that before, written from multiple POVs. Well, actually, that's not 100% true. My first novel had a little bit of a secondary POV, but well, there's going to be some returning narrators, and maybe anywhere between 1 and 3 new ones, I think.
We have a question from Alex saying, you once mentioned that If the Light Escapes was written before Darkness. Was it always written from Kino's point of view, or did that evolve after the first novel?
Oh, I think what I meant was it was written before If Darkness came out, because I wrote If Darkness first, and then while you're trying to sell it to, trying to shop it to agents and publishers, and then even when you find a publisher, it takes a long process to actually, for the book to actually come out. So I wrote it during all that, and it was, the first draft was, well, actually I was several drafts into it before Darkness came out. So no, I wrote it from Kino's point of view from the very beginning.
Jimmy asks, you've written 2 dystopian novels. Do you see yourself writing a utopian novel in the future? I ask this because there was a hopeful perspective generally agreed on at the farm, and that has been an influence on your life.
That's a good question. The problem with drama is it's not interesting unless there's conflict. So I'm not quite sure how I would write a utopian novel, because I'm not certain I believe in utopia as, I mean, as an ideal, I do, but not as I don't think everything's ever going to be perfect. And I'm not actually sure it would be that great if it was. And, but gosh, how do I answer this? I think I think there's a novel I have in mind that would not be dystopian and would have some utopian flavors in it. That's about as much as I can tell you at this point. I don't think many books ahead like some people do. I have a third book in the series cooking, and another one cooking. Any more questions?
I think that about wraps everything up. We just had one more thing come through, and I think that'll be the last. How did you and Laura and Aden find each other? What an amazing support group. You have truly enjoyed the background they provided and their comments and questions. Your baby brother is getting very emotional.
Aw. I'm sorry, baby. Well, Laura and I knew each other from the co-ops, and although we hadn't spent a lot of time together in years, but we had a mutual friend who we each spent a lot of time with, named George Leake III, and he started writing a novel, and he knew that we were each writing novels, and so he pulled us together to start a group, and we worked with George in that group for maybe, I'm not sure if it was quite a year, it could have been, but then George moved away and he didn't want to do online meetings. And meanwhile, I was doing Twitter contests. Well, soon after George moved, I was doing a Twitter contest, and I met Aden, and he asked if we wanted to exchange. Anyone want to exchange critiques? And I said, I do. And he just,
Hi, Brenda.
hi, how are
Jim
you?
Ellinger.
Hi, Jim. We're finishing up questions right now, and then we're going to open it up to everybody
Okay.
that after a couple more little things. Okay, is it, so that's the last question then? Okay, so, I guess it's time for me to do thank yous. Is that what's next?
We are going to transition over to Aden real quick, and he's going to talk about the giveaway.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But before I talk about the giveaway, I just want to mention the significance of reviews for books, and that when you buy,
there you go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. When you buy Brenda's book, it means so much to authors to get reviews because it helps raise, for instance, the Amazon algorithm and draws more attention to the book as well. So I'm just going to paste the link to the Amazon book in the chat so that you remember to leave a review. And it could even just be a few words and just an honest review. Really, it helps so much for authors, particularly in terms of the attention that Amazon gives to books and the way they draw potential readers to these titles. Now for the giveaway, we will be doing a giveaway for physical copies of the advanced reading copies for If the Light Escapes, as well as The City Beautiful. And what I'm going to be doing is a random number generator.
Aden, also,
also of Darkness takes us as well. So 3 books. I'm going to see if I could share the screen right now. We have 17 participants, so 13 potential entries. And unfortunately, it won't allow me to share the screen. Brenda, would you like to bring up a random number generator on your side, or should I?
You should have capabilities now.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay, so let me just double check the number of. Can you all see this?
yes.
Okay, so we got number 10.
Okay.
It looks like it's, yeah, Paul Barnett. If you would like, can you private message Brenda or Liz with your email address so that they can send more info?
Yeah, Paul, just contact me on Facebook or something, or email me. So you can email me through my website, and we'll get you your books. Okay, so I think we're going to wind this down and then open it up where everybody can chat together for a little while afterwards. I want to thank all of you again for coming tonight, for reading, reviewing, retweeting, all these great things you do. You're just the best. And there's so many more people to thank for their exceptionally good help with draft after draft of everything I write, and for co-hosting this event. Heaps of gratitude to my critique partners, Laura Creedle and Aden Polydoros, and to Flora Salcedo for a little something of extra writing perspective on the side. And I was gonna, well, since Turnabout is fair play, I'm gonna tell you something about Laura and Aden. I already told you how I met him. Anyway, he writes like a dream. He has a book coming out in October, The City Beautiful, a queer Jewish historical fantasy mystery horror story, something for everyone. It's getting a huge buzz, really. It's a wonderful book. And he has more book contracts and more books in the works. So be on the lookout for him. He's going to be big stuff any minute. And then I told you how I met Laura already. But Laura is the author of The Love Letters of Abelard and Lily, which won the best YA novel of 2017 from Writers League of Texas. And she has some other good books in the works as well. So look out for her too. And then I want to thank Liz Engelmeyer, who's been running this event behind the scenes. Say hi, Liz. She is a kick-ass PR person, great with graphics and advice, who also happens to have an amazing murder mystery novel, Nobody Girl, that someone is going to publish any day because they'd be fools not to. And my undying gratitude to the folks at Southern Fried Karma Press, Steve McConaughey, Pinckney Benedict, Haley Swinson, Mandy Jordan, Jenny Kimura, and Allison McConaughey. With special thanks to the mega talented Olivia Hammerman for the amazing book cover and interior design. Thanks to Marianne Judy and the folks at Goddess Fish Promotions for putting together 2 virtual book blog tours for me. And thanks to all the blog hosts as well. The wonderful writer and blogger May Claire has done me so many kindnesses, I can't list them all. Many other writers have hosted me on their blogs and podcasts. Stay tuned for more podcasts coming up with Paul Lafferty and Sarah Meckler, hopefully others. And thanks to all those who interviewed me. You can find links to almost all of this on my website at brendamariesmith.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at bsmithnovelist. I have a wonderful family, too big to thank person by person here. But I am a fortunate woman when it comes to family, and I also am fortunate when it comes to friends. And thanks to Nana B. Crenshaw and Keno Sims for being such great protagonists to hang books on. Last but never least, eternal thanks to my husband, Douglas Goebel, for being so sweet, for getting everything ready for this event, and for protecting me from pandemics and snowmageddons. Doug is going to sing a song for you now, a song he wrote called Blown Away, that he allowed me to use part of for the opening of If the Light Escapes. You can find Doug and his songs, including this one, by searching Douglas Goebel on YouTube. That's Douglas and then Goebel on YouTube. And now I give you the love of my life, Douglas Goebel.
All right, all right, all right.
Go, Dougie.
All right. What do you do tears all run dry. What'll you do when your baby starts to cry? Where do you run when the flames have filled the sky? Blown away by the situation today. Where do you go when they walk you out the door? How do you know when you join the working poor? How can you tell like the soul blown away by the situation today? How can you pay when they've taken all you got? How can you tell who will help and who will not? How can you feel when Wall Street prices drop? Blown away by the situation today. Why don't we fight instead of curling up to cry? Why don't we scream when they tell another lie? What does it mean to say liberty or die? Blown away by the situation today. Blown away, can't we find the bed